Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Harvey. Let me tell you something. When a woman craves an older man, it ain't just about the gray hair, the confidence, or the way he walks into a room like he's already paid his dues. No, sir. It's deeper than that. A grown woman is not looking for excitement, only she's looking for security, wisdom, and emotional safety. And before she gives her heart to you, she's going to test you. Not with games, but with two very important questions. Now listen closely, because these questions don't always sound like tests, but they are. The first question she asks is, what do you want? Now that sounds simple, right? But it ain't. When a woman asks you what you want, she's not just talking about tonight or next week or even next month. She's asking, do you know who you are? Do you have direction? Are you clear about your intentions? A grown woman does not have time for confusion. If you stumble, if you dodge, if you say, let's just see where it goes, she hears one thing. This man is still figuring himself out. And that's not attractive to a woman who already knows what she wants. A woman craving an older man is not attracted to numbers on a birth certificate. She is drawn to what time has shaped inside a man. Age by itself means nothing if it hasn't produced wisdom, patience, and emotional stability. What she is really responding to is maturity, the kind that comes from experience, mistakes, reflection, and growth. She has already lived enough life to know that excitement without depth eventually becomes exhaustion. So when she looks toward an older man, she is searching for something calmer, stronger, and more reliable. Emotional maturity shows up in how a man listens, not just how he speaks. A mature man doesn't interrupt to prove a point or dominate a conversation to feel powerful. He listens to understand, not to win. That ability alone makes a woman feel seen and valued, which is far more attractive than flashy confidence. She notices how he responds when she expresses a concern, how he handles disagreement, and whether he remains grounded instead of defensive. These moments tell her everything she needs to know about his emotional age. A woman who desires an older man is also looking for consistency. She wants someone whose behavior today matches his behavior tomorrow. Mood swings, hot and cold attention, and emotional unpredictability are signs of immaturity, no matter how old a man is. Emotional maturity means being steady, showing up when you say you will, speaking honestly even when it's uncomfortable, and taking responsibility for your actions without excuses. That reliability creates a sense of safety, and safety is what allows attraction to deepen into trust. Another key part of emotional maturity is accountability. A mature man doesn't blame his past relationships, his childhood, or other people for everything that goes wrong. He has done the inner work to understand his patterns, his flaws, and his triggers. When he makes a mistake, he owns it. That level of self-awareness signals strength, not weakness. To a woman who has already dealt with emotionally unavailable or defensive men, this quality feels like relief. Emotional maturity also means emotional availability. An older man who has grown understands that vulnerability is not a threat to masculinity. He can express feelings without fear, communicate needs without anger, and offer reassurance without being asked. This openness creates emotional intimacy, which is often what a woman craves more than physical attraction. She wants a partner who can handle her emotions without being overwhelmed by them. Ultimately, when a woman is drawn to an older man, she is responding to the presence of a man who is at peace with himself. His calm energy, emotional control, and grounded nature stand in contrast to chaos and uncertainty. That maturity tells her she doesn't have to teach, fix, or carry the relationship alone. And in that space of emotional safety and balance, desire grows naturally and deeply. When a woman asks a man, "What do you want?" she is not fishing for romance or sweet words. She is searching for clarity. This question is a mirror, and whatever reflects back tells her whether the man standing in front of her understands himself or is still lost in uncertainty. A woman who is emotionally aware knows that confusion at the beginning becomes pain later. So she pays close attention to how a man answers this question. It reveals his self-awareness, his direction, and his emotional readiness. Clarity is attractive because it signals stability. A man who knows what he wants has already spent time reflecting on his life, his values, and his priorities. He is not experimenting with people or using relationships to fill emptiness. When he speaks with certainty, not arrogance, it tells a woman that he is intentional. He is choosing, not drifting. That sense of purpose allows her to relax because she is not guessing where she stands or what role she plays in his life. Indecision, on the other hand, speaks loudly. When a man responds with vague answers like, "I don't know, let's see where things go," or "I'm just enjoying the moment," a woman hears hesitation and emotional unpreparedness. To her, these words translate into inconsistency, delayed commitment, and future disappointment. It doesn't mean she wants immediate promises, but she does want to know that the man has direction. Without clarity, she senses that she may end up investing more than he is willing to give. This question also tests honesty. A mature man does not tailor his answer to keep a woman interested or to avoid losing her. He speaks truthfully, even if his truth may not fully align with what she wants to hear. That honesty builds respect. A woman would rather hear a clear truth than live inside comfortable confusion. When a man is honest about his intentions, she can make informed emotional decisions instead of guessing his motives. Knowing what he wants also reflects emotional discipline. A man with clarity is not easily distracted, emotionally impulsive, or reactive. He understands his boundaries and respects hers. He does not chase attention or validation because his identity is grounded. This inner certainty allows him to move slowly without being passive and confidently without being controlling. That balance is deeply appealing to a woman who values emotional intelligence. Ultimately, when a woman asks, "What do you want?" she is measuring whether a man has done the internal work required to lead himself before leading a relationship. Clarity tells her that he is not looking to be completed, but to share life with intention. When a man answers this question with calm confidence and truth, he shows her that his presence is not accidental, it is deliberate. Indecision is one of the clearest signals a woman notices when she is evaluating a man's emotional readiness. It doesn't matter how charming, intelligent, or experienced he may seem. If he cannot make clear choices, she senses instability. For a grown woman, indecision feels less like patience and more like avoidance. She understands that life requires decisions, and a man who struggles to choose reveals that he may struggle to lead, commit, or stand firm when things become difficult. When a man hesitates repeatedly, it creates uncertainty. A woman begins to wonder where she stands, what role she plays, and how much emotional energy she should invest. Humans naturally seek emotional security, and uncertainty threatens that need. Indecision leaves too many unanswered questions, and unanswered questions slowly erode trust. A woman may not voice it immediately, but internally she starts pulling back to protect herself. Indecision often signals fear. It may be fear of commitment, fear of failure, or fear of vulnerability. While fear itself is human, refusing to confront it suggests emotional immaturity. A woman recognizes that a man who avoids decisions today will avoid responsibility tomorrow. She has likely experienced relationships where she carried the emotional weight while the man stayed undecided, and she is not eager to repeat that cycle. For her, decisiveness represents emotional strength and accountability. Another reason indecision is a red flag is that it shifts emotional labor onto the woman. When a man cannot decide, she is often forced to compensate by making plans, defining the relationship, or pushing conversations forward. Over time, this imbalance creates exhaustion. A woman wants partnership, not parenting. She wants a man who can meet her with certainty, not someone who needs constant reassurance or direction. Decisiveness does not mean control or rigidity. A woman is not looking for a man who dictates everything or refuses to compromise. She values flexibility, but flexibility grounded in clarity. A decisive man can listen, consider options, and still arrive at a conclusion. He does not linger in endless uncertainty. His ability to decide communicates confidence in himself and trust in his judgment, both of which are deeply attractive. Indecision also affects emotional safety. When a man cannot commit to a decision, a woman questions whether he will commit to her during conflict, stress, or change. Life is unpredictable, and relationships require someone who can stand firm when circumstances shift. A man who avoids decisions sends the message that he may disappear emotionally when challenges arise. That possibility alone is enough to make a woman cautious. For a woman who values stability and growth, decisiveness is not about speed, but about intention. She wants to see that a man can choose with awareness and stand behind his choices. Indecision, especially when repeated, signals that he is not ready for the depth she desires. And rather than trying to change him, she simply steps back, recognizing that clarity is not something she should have to demand. When a woman asks, "What are you going to do about us?" she is no longer interested in potential or promises. She is focused on action. This question shifts the conversation from intention to responsibility. At this stage, attraction alone is not enough. She wants to know whether a man can translate his words into consistent behavior. For a woman who values emotional maturity, actions are the clearest language of commitment. This question tests leadership. Leadership in a relationship does not mean control or dominance. It means initiative, foresight, and emotional presence. A woman wants to see whether a man can recognize the direction a relationship is heading and take ownership of it. When a man responds with clear plans, thoughtful consideration, and calm confidence, it signals that he is capable of guiding a shared future rather than drifting through it. Avoiding the question or giving vague reassurances suggests hesitation and a lack of emotional readiness. Action also reflects prioritization. When a man takes steps to nurture the relationship, he communicates that it matters to him. This can show up in small but meaningful ways. Making time, following through on commitments, addressing issues instead of ignoring them, and being emotionally available even when life becomes demanding. A woman watches these details closely because they reveal whether she is a priority or merely an option. Consistency is another critical factor. A man may act decisively once or twice, but a woman looks for patterns over time. Consistent action builds trust, while inconsistency creates doubt. When a man's behavior aligns with his words repeatedly, she feels secure. When his actions fluctuate, she begins to question his sincerity. Stability is not about perfection, it is about reliability. A woman wants to know that she can depend on a man not just when things are easy, but when they require effort. This question also measures emotional courage. Taking action in a relationship often requires difficult conversations, vulnerability, and accountability. A man who steps forward instead of withdrawing demonstrates emotional strength. He does not wait for circumstances to force his hand, he chooses to engage. That willingness reassures a woman that he will not disappear emotionally when challenges arise. Ultimately, "What are you going to do about us?" is a moment of truth. It asks whether a man is willing to move beyond comfort and into responsibility. A woman is not asking for perfection or guarantees. She is asking for effort and intention. When a man answers this question through thoughtful, consistent action, he shows that he understands the value of partnership. And in doing so, he creates the emotional safety that allows a relationship to deepen and grow. Consistency is the true measure of a man's character, far more powerful than charm, attraction, or persuasive words. A woman may be impressed initially by confidence, humor, or emotional intensity, but what determines whether she stays emotionally invested is whether a man shows up the same way over time. Words can create excitement, but consistency creates trust. Without it, even the most romantic promises eventually lose their meaning. Charm is easy in the beginning. Anyone can be attentive, affectionate, and expressive when emotions are new and energy is high. A woman knows this. That is why she pays closer attention to what remains when the excitement settles. Does he still communicate? Does he still keep his word? Does his effort remain steady when life becomes stressful or inconvenient? Consistency answers these questions without requiring reassurance or explanation. When a man's actions fluctuate, a woman begins to feel emotionally unsettled. One day he is present, affectionate, and engaged. The next day he is distant or unavailable. This unpredictability creates anxiety, not attraction. A woman may try to rationalize it at first, but over time, inconsistency forces her into a defensive emotional posture. She starts managing expectations, lowering emotional investment, and preparing for disappointment. This slow withdrawal is not sudden rejection. It is self-protection. Consistency also communicates respect. When a man consistently follows through, he shows that he values her time, emotions, and trust. He understands that reliability is a form of care. This doesn't require grand gestures. It requires dependability. Small acts done consistently carry more weight than occasional dramatic displays. A woman feels safer with someone whose behavior she can predict than with someone who surprises her emotionally. Another important aspect of consistency is emotional regulation. A consistent man does not let his moods dictate how he treats the woman he cares about. He understands that emotions fluctuate, but respect should not. This emotional steadiness reassures a woman that she does not have to walk on eggshells or guess which version of him she will encounter. Stability becomes attractive because it allows intimacy to grow without fear. Words lose power when they are not supported by action. A man can say he cares, that he wants a future, or that he is serious, but if his behavior contradicts those statements, a woman believes the behavior. Consistency is what turns intention into credibility. Over time, she learns whether she can rely on his presence or only on his promises. For a woman seeking emotional maturity, consistency is not negotiable. It tells her that a man is grounded, intentional, and capable of sustaining a connection. While charm may spark interest, it is consistency that builds a foundation strong enough to support trust, intimacy, and long-term commitment. When a woman feels safe, her heart opens naturally without force or pressure. Emotional safety is the foundation that allows love to grow without fear, doubt, or constant self-protection. It is not created through grand gestures or intense declarations, but through steady behavior, honesty, and emotional presence. A woman commits deeply when she believes that her emotions will be respected, not dismissed or used against her. Safety begins with emotional reliability. A man who responds calmly instead of reacting impulsively creates a sense of balance. When disagreements arise, she watches whether he listens or becomes defensive, whether he seeks understanding or tries to dominate the situation. A woman feels safe with a man who can disagree without demeaning, express frustration without withdrawing, and communicate without threatening the relationship. This emotional steadiness allows her to speak freely, knowing she will not be punished for honesty. Trust is another critical part of safety. A woman needs to believe that a man's words and actions align, not just occasionally, but consistently. When trust is present, she no longer feels the need to guard her emotions or anticipate disappointment. She can be vulnerable without fear of abandonment or manipulation. This trust does not appear overnight. It is built through repeated experiences of reliability, respect, and transparency. Emotional safety also involves acceptance. A woman opens her heart when she feels accepted as she is, not as someone who needs to be fixed or reshaped. A man who allows her to express her feelings without minimizing them creates space for genuine connection. She does not have to explain why she feels the way she feels. She is understood. That understanding strengthens intimacy far more than constant reassurance ever could. Another important element is patience. A man who does not rush emotional closeness or demand vulnerability shows respect for her emotional pace. This patience communicates that her comfort matters more than his immediate desires. When a woman senses that she is not being pressured, she naturally moves closer. Safety removes resistance, allowing emotional connection to deepen organically. When a woman feels emotionally safe, commitment becomes a choice rather than a risk. She no longer fears being misunderstood, abandoned, or emotionally neglected. Her energy shifts from self-protection to partnership. In this space, she gives fully, loves freely, and invests without hesitation. Safety transforms attraction into trust and interest into devotion. Ultimately, emotional safety is what allows a woman to commit without fear. It reassures her that she can be herself without losing love, speak her truth without losing connection, and grow without losing stability. When a man creates that environment, her heart does not need convincing. It simply opens.